When my husband quit drinking, I thought it was going to save our marriage. That's the honest truth. I thought sobriety was the answer to everything that had been quietly rotting between us. For years, Ryan had been the guy with a beer in his hand at every barbecue, every Broncos game, every random Tuesday night. It wasn't sloppy drunk every night, but it was constant. Craft IPAs stacked in the fridge, whiskey bottles half hidden in the cabinet above the microwave. That casual, always a little buzzed version of him that everyone found charming. I didn't realize how much space alcohol was taking up in our marriage until he decided to quit. It happened after a work holiday party in December. He drove home swearing he was fine, clipped the curb 2 blocks from our house in Aurora, and blew out the tire. No DUI, no cop, just the humiliation of standing in the freezing cold at 1 a.m. while I held the flashlight and he fumbled with the jack, cursing under his breath. The next morning, he woke up pale and quiet. "I'm done," he said. I didn't argue, I didn't question it. I hugged him and told him I was proud of him. And for the first few weeks, I was. He started waking up early, making coffee instead of reaching for Alka-Seltzer. He downloaded one of those sobriety apps that tracks his days. He went to the gym after work. He looked clearer, lighter, like the fog around him had finally lifted. But then something else started happening. He stopped coming home. At first, it made sense. He told me he needed meetings, support groups, structure. I didn't grow up around addiction, so I didn't know what was normal. He'd say, "I've got a 7 p.m. meeting," kiss my forehead, and head out the door. I wanted to be the supportive wife. I wanted to believe in his recovery, so I'd heat up leftovers around 8:30, scroll through Netflix alone, and wait for the sound of his truck in the driveway. Sometimes he'd come home around 10, sometimes 11. Once it was almost 1 in the morning. "Meeting ran long," he'd say, dropping his keys into the bowl by the door. A new guy needed to talk. I never questioned it. I felt guilty even thinking about questioning it. He wasn't out drinking anymore. He wasn't slurring his words. He wasn't picking stupid fights. Shouldn't I just be grateful? But the longer this went on, the more distant he felt. Sobriety didn't make him warmer. It made him sharper, more focused, more somewhere else. He stopped sitting on the couch with me at night, stopped reaching for my hand in bed. When I tried to talk about normal things, my job at the dental office, my sister's new baby, the leak in the upstairs bathroom, he'd nod, but his eyes weren't really there. One night around March, I asked him softly, "Do you want me to come to a meeting with you sometime, just to understand it better?" He didn't even hesitate. "No." The word landed harder than I expected. "It's not like that," he added quickly. "It's private. You wouldn't get it." I swallowed the hurt. "Okay." After that, I stopped asking. The weirdest part was that our friends kept praising him. At cookouts, they'd clap him on the back. "Man, you look good," they'd say. "Proud of you." He'd smile modestly, sip his sparkling water, and tell them he felt better than ever. I stood next to him, smiling too, wondering why I felt like I was slowly disappearing. The first real crack happened on a Thursday night. He texted around 6:15 p.m. "Running late, big meeting tonight." I responded with a thumbs up and tried not to overthink it. Around 9:30, I realized I needed his insurance card information for something. Ours were under his employer's plan, and I couldn't remember the login for the portal. I went into his office to grab his laptop. Ryan was weirdly protective of his laptop lately. He used to leave it open on the kitchen counter. Now it was always shut, sometimes even tucked into his backpack. I told myself I was being paranoid. I opened it. It required a password. That wasn't new, but when I typed the one he'd used for everything for years, it didn't work. I tried a few variations. Nothing. My stomach tightened. Why change it? I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat over something that might have been completely innocent. Then his phone buzzed on his desk. He'd left it behind. That never happened. I froze, just stared at it lighting up on the wood surface. A notification banner flashed across the screen. It wasn't from a sobriety app. It wasn't from a group chat. It was from a contact saved as M. My chest went cold. The preview only showed part of the message. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last time was..." The rest was cut off. My hands actually started shaking. I picked up the phone before I could talk myself out of it. It was locked. Of course it was locked. I stood there in his office, surrounded by framed photos of us from hiking trips in Estes Park, from our anniversary dinner in downtown Denver, from the day we signed the papers on this house. I felt stupid, dramatic, suspicious. Maybe M was Mark from work. Maybe it was some guy from his meetings. Maybe I was turning into one of those wives who saw betrayal everywhere because she didn't know how to handle change. I put the phone back down exactly where it had been. Then I sat in his office chair and waited. He didn't come home until 12:38 a.m. I was on the couch with the TV off when he walked in. He looked startled to see me awake. "Hey," he said carefully, "you okay?" "Yeah," I replied. "Just couldn't sleep." He nodded, set his keys down. "How was the meeting?" "Good, emotional." He loosened his jacket. "A lot of stuff came up." I watched his face while he spoke. I'd known this man for 11 years. I knew when he was annoyed, when he was nervous, when he was lying about something small. But this was different. This was smooth. "Who's M?" I asked before I could stop myself. His entire body stilled. "What?" "I saw a notification on your phone from M." He didn't blink. "Mike, from the group." "What group?" "My Thursday group." I nodded slowly. "You've never mentioned to Mike." "There's a lot of people I haven't mentioned." His tone wasn't defensive. It was controlled, almost bored. "You went through my phone?" "I didn't go through it. It lit up." He exhaled sharply through his nose. "This is exactly why I didn't want you involved in this part of my life. You don't trust me." There it was. The shift. Suddenly I was the problem. "I do trust you," I said quietly. I feel like you're never here anymore." "I'm doing this for us," he snapped. "You think it's easy. You think I enjoy sitting in church basements talking about my worst moments." Church basements. He'd never mentioned where the meetings were held before. "I'm not attacking you," I said, feeling smaller by the second. "I just miss you." He looked at me for a long time, something unreadable in his eyes. "You should be happy I'm not at a bar," he said finally. That line stuck with me, because it felt like a shield. Like as long as he wasn't drinking, he was automatically innocent of everything else. Over the next few weeks, I paid closer attention. He started showering before meetings. He'd change shirts twice sometimes, check himself in the mirror in a way that didn't look like someone heading to a folding chair circle to talk about addiction. He bought a new cologne.
Said it was a fresh start thing. One Saturday morning, while he was in the shower, I opened the Find My app on my phone. We shared locations for years. It was just a safety thing. Neither of us had ever thought twice about it. His location was off. I stared at the screen like it might correct itself. It didn't. When he came downstairs, I tried to keep my voice steady. "Why did you turn your location off?" He didn't miss a beat. "Battery was dying. It drains faster when it's on." That wasn't true, but I didn't push. I felt like I was slowly losing my grip on reality. Was I insecure because he was changing? Was I threatened by his growth? Was I clinging to the old version of him because at least I understood that one? Or was something else happening entirely? The night everything shifted for me was the night I decided to follow him. I didn't plan it in some dramatic way. I just couldn't sit in that house alone anymore wondering. He kissed my cheek around 6:50 p.m. "Meeting at 7. "Okay," I said. I waited 5 minutes after his truck pulled out of the driveway. Then I grabbed my keys and followed at a distance. He didn't drive toward any church. He didn't drive toward the community center he'd once vaguely mentioned. He got on I-225 heading south. My heart pounded so loud I thought I might pass out. He exited near a strip of newer apartment complexes in Centennial, the kind with gated entries and fake stone facades and leasing banners still hanging out front. I slowed as he turned into one of them. He punched in a gate code. The gate slid open. I couldn't follow. I just sat there in my car, headlights off, staring at the closed gate like it had personally betrayed me. This wasn't a meeting. This wasn't recovery. This was something else. And I suddenly realized I wasn't scared of finding out the truth. I was scared of how long it had already been happening. Because men don't build second lives overnight. They ease into them, quietly. And I had a feeling sobriety wasn't the beginning of his secrets. It was just when he stopped hiding them behind alcohol. I sat outside that apartment complex for almost 20 minutes, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers went numb. The gate had already closed behind him, sealing whatever he was doing inside like it was protected, private, intentional. The complex was one of those new builds with identical balconies and warm yellow hallway lights. You could tell the paint was still fresh. There were a few cars parked along the curb outside the gate, probably guests who didn't have access codes. I felt like one of them, a guest in my own marriage. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe someone from his group lived there. Maybe they rotated houses. Maybe sobriety meetings weren't always in church basements. Maybe I was about to blow up my entire life because I couldn't handle change. But deep down, I already knew. Ryan wasn't the kind of man who accidentally ended up somewhere. He was calculated, organized. Even when he drank, he was controlled. If he was here, it was because he wanted to be here. At 7:42 p.m., I saw lights flick on in a second-floor unit near the front of the complex. Sliding glass door, sheer curtains. A shadow moved across them. I don't know why, but I got out of my car. I told myself I just needed to see something, anything. A face, a sign, proof that I was wrong. I walked up to the pedestrian gate and pressed the call box randomly. No answer. I stood there pretending to scroll on my phone, trying to look casual in case someone drove up behind me. A silver Honda pulled up a minute later. A woman in her early 30s leaned over to punch in the gate code. I timed it perfectly and slipped in right behind her car before it closed. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. Inside, the complex was quiet. Too quiet for a Thursday night meeting full of men unpacking their addictions. No folding chairs, no clusters of trucks, no signs taped to doors, just soft apartment lighting and distant TV sounds. I moved toward the building where I'd seen the lights. The closer I got, the more I felt like I was walking toward a cliff. Unit 214. The sliding door was cracked open a few inches. I could hear music inside. Not loud, just background. Something slow, intimate. And then I heard her laugh. It wasn't a stranger's laugh. It was the laugh from his phone notification. I don't know how I knew that, but I did. I stepped closer to the patio, staying just out of view of the glass. I saw them before they saw me. Ryan was standing in the kitchen area, back to me, sleeves rolled up, holding 2 wine glasses. Wine glasses. My husband, who'd been preaching sobriety for 4 months, was pouring red wine like he was hosting a dinner party. She was sitting on the counter, legs crossed, barefoot, wearing one of those oversized off-the-shoulder sweaters that look effortless but aren't. Long, dark hair, younger than me by at least 5 years. She reached for the glass. He kissed her before handing it to her. Not rushed, not guilty. Comfortable, like this was routine. I don't remember deciding to step forward. My body just did it. The sliding door screeched slightly when I pulled it open wider. Ryan turned first. The look on his face wasn't confusion. It was terror. "Claire." She whipped her head toward me, eyes wide. For a second, the 3 of us just stood there, frozen in this perfectly lit apartment that wasn't mine. "You are not at a meeting," I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. The woman slid off the counter, clutching the wine glass like it might protect her. Ryan set his down slowly. "It's not what you think." I almost laughed at how cliché that sounded. "You're drinking," I said instead. That was what shocked me the most in that moment. "You've been lying about everything." "It's complicated," he said, running a hand through his hair. "How long?" I asked. Silence. "Ryan, how long?" "Since January." January. He'd quit drinking in December. I felt the air leave my lungs. "So sobriety was what? A rebrand?" I said. "You cleaned yourself up so you'd look like the good guy while you started sleeping with someone else?" "Don't talk to him like that," the woman snapped suddenly. I looked at her. "Are you serious?" She lifted her chin like she was the offended one. He stepped between us slightly. Protective. Of her. That's when something inside me cracked. "You've been telling me you're in meetings," I said quietly. "You've been coming home at 1 in the morning. You've been acting like I'm crazy for missing you." "I didn't plan this," he said. "It just happened." "Nothing just happens 4 nights a week." He didn't argue with that. The apartment smelled like her. Vanilla candles and something floral. There was a throw blanket folded neatly on the couch. A framed photo of the 2 of them on the coffee table. A framed photo. Not hidden. Not secret. Displayed. "You brought me here?" I asked her. She hesitated. "He told me you 2 were basically separated." I looked at him slowly. "Separated?" He opened his mouth. Closed it. No immediate defense this time. "That's what you told her?" My voice wasn't even angry anymore. It was hollow. He exhaled heavily. "I told her things haven't been good." "That's not what I asked." She looked between us, uncertainty finally creeping into her expression.
"You said you were sleeping in separate rooms," she said to him. My stomach flipped. He had told me he needed space a few times, that recovery required mental clarity. He'd spent a couple nights on the couch claiming he didn't want to keep me up with his restlessness. "You've been building a new relationship while living in my house," I said. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" He didn't answer. Because there wasn't a version of this that didn't make him look exactly like what he was. I stepped further into the apartment, looking around like I was inspecting a crime scene. "You turned your location off." "For privacy," he muttered. "You changed your passwords. You went through my stuff. You lied about meetings. You don't understand what I've been going through," he snapped suddenly, frustration breaking through. That stopped me. "What you've been going through?" "Yes," he said, voice rising. "I quit drinking. I've been trying to figure out who I am without it, and you just wanted everything to stay the same." The deflection was almost impressive. "I wanted my husband to come home," I said. "That's it." He looked at the floor. The woman set her glass down on the counter carefully. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "He told me you were distant, that you didn't support him." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "He's been telling me the same thing about you," I said to her. "That he's at meetings, saving our marriage." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Stop," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm done stopping." For months I'd swallowed questions, doubted myself.
blamed myself for feeling lonely. And the entire time, he was here, drinking wine, playing house. "I think you should go," she said softly, but she wasn't talking to me. She was looking at him. That was the moment I realized this wasn't some reckless affair. This wasn't just sex. He had been splitting himself in half, and she had believed him. I felt tired suddenly, deeply bone-tired. "I'm not going to scream," I said calmly. "I'm not going to throw anything. I'm just going to leave." Ryan looked up, panic flickering again. "Claire, wait. For what?" "So we can talk about this." "We are talking about it," I said. "You just don't like that I showed up." I turned toward the sliding door. "Are you coming home?" I asked without looking back. He didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. I nodded once. Okay. I walked out of that apartment complex feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I wasn't crazy. He wasn't finding himself. He was replacing me. He didn't come home that night. I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every single time he'd said he was trying to be better. Every time he'd implied I wasn't supportive enough. Every time he'd kissed my forehead before leaving for a meeting. The scariest part wasn't that he cheated. It was how easily he'd stepped into a completely different life. And as I stared at the empty side of the bed, I started wondering something that made my chest tighten. If he could build this second life so smoothly, how many other lies had I missed before this? Because something told me this wasn't his first time rewriting a story to make himself look like the victim. And I had a feeling the next truth was going to hurt even more than this one. Ryan didn't come home until Sunday afternoon. He texted Friday morning. Just one sentence. "I need space to think." I stared at that message sitting at my kitchen table, sunlight coming through the blinds like nothing in my life had detonated the night before. Space. He'd been living in someone else's apartment 4 nights a week for months, and he needed space. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something I probably should have done the second he started disappearing at night. I started digging. Not dramatically. Not like some movie montage where I'm hacking into accounts and printing screenshots. I just started with the practical stuff. Bank statements. We've always had a joint account. His paycheck, my paycheck, everything flowed in and out of the same place. I'd never had a reason to scrutinize it beyond making sure bills were paid. But now I was looking at every line. There were charges I didn't recognize. A furniture store in Centennial. Not expensive, but specific. A boutique grocery store I'd never stepped foot in. Monthly Venmo payments labeled with a coffee cup emoji. Always to the same person. A woman's name. My stomach tightened. The apartment complex name showed up too. Twice. February and March. I felt like I was watching a movie of my own stupidity. He hadn't just been visiting her. He'd been financially supporting something there. Maybe the security deposit. Maybe utilities. Maybe furniture. There were also hotel charges from January. Downtown Denver. A Marriott I knew well because we'd stayed there once for our anniversary when our power went out during a snowstorm. That was the month he started late meetings. I pulled up our shared photo albums on my phone. Started scrolling back to January. There were pictures of us smiling at a friend's Super Bowl party. Ryan holding a can of sparkling water, proud of his sobriety. Everyone cheering him on. That same weekend, there was a gap in our photos on Saturday night. He told me he had an emergency meeting. The Marriott charge was from that Saturday. I felt physically ill. By the time Sunday afternoon rolled around, my emotions had shifted from shock to something colder, cleaner, almost analytical. When I heard his truck in the driveway, my heart didn't race. It steadied. He walked in slowly, like someone entering a hospital room. I was sitting at the kitchen island with my laptop open. He looked tired. Same clothes from Thursday. Same jacket. "Hey," he said carefully. I didn't answer right away. "Did you stay there all weekend?" I asked. He closed the door behind him. "Yeah." No apology, no explanation. Just, yeah. I nodded. I went through our bank statements. His face changed immediately. Not guilt, irritation. "That's my money too," he said defensively. "It's our money," I corrected. He didn't respond. "How much are you paying for her apartment?" He rubbed his forehead. "It's not like that. That's not an answer." He walked further into the kitchen, leaning against the counter like he was exhausted by me. "I helped her out," he said. She was struggling. "With what? Paying rent for the place you're sleeping in?" He exhaled sharply. "You're twisting it." I turned the laptop around so he could see the charges. "The Marriott in January," I said. "That was before you even told me about her." He stared at the screen but didn't deny it. "How long were you talking to her before that?" I asked. Silence. "Ryan." "Since November." November. He quit drinking in December. So he'd been building this before sobriety. Before the curb. Before the dramatic, "I'm done" speech in our driveway. "You didn't quit drinking because you hit a curb," I said slowly. "You quit because you were starting something new." "That's not why," he snapped. "Then why?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked away, jaw tight. "Because she didn't want to be with someone who drank like I did," he muttered finally.
It felt like someone had punched me directly in the chest. You changed for her. I changed for me. No, I said, shaking my head. You changed for her. All those early mornings.
All those proud smiles at cookouts, the speeches about clarity and growth. It wasn't about recovery. It was about impressing someone new. I needed a fresh start, he said. You and I have been stuck for years. Stuck. That word felt like acid. We've been married 9 years, I said quietly. We bought this house 3 years ago. We've been trying to have a baby. He flinched at that. We were trying because you wanted to, he said. That's not true. You wanted something to fix us. I laughed, but it came out hollow. And you wanted someone who didn't know the old you. That hit him, because that was the truth. She met the sober version, the gym-going, emotionally reflective version, the guy who talked about growth and healing. She didn't know about the nights he passed out on the couch, the arguments about his drinking, the way he used to snap when he was hungover. She got the rebranded husband. I didn't plan to fall for her, he said quietly. There it was. Fall. You love her? I asked. He didn't answer, and that was answer enough. I swallowed hard. You told her we were separated? We basically were. Sleeping in the same bed every night isn't separated. We haven't been close in a long time. That stung because there was a sliver of truth there. The last couple years hadn't been easy. We'd both buried ourselves in routines. He'd numbed out with alcohol. I'd filled the silence with work and errands and pretending everything was fine. But I never stopped choosing him. I was still here, I said. He looked at me then, really looked at me. I know. The house felt different with him standing in it, smaller, like the walls were listening. What's the plan? I asked. He blinked. What? What's your plan, Ryan? You going to keep playing house over there and sleeping here when it's convenient? Or are you leaving? He hesitated, and that hesitation sliced deeper than anything else. I don't know, he said. I nodded slowly. For months, I'd been twisting myself into knots trying to understand him, trying to support him, trying not to be the problem. And now he didn't know. I stood up from the island. I can't compete with a fantasy, I said quietly. She's not a fantasy. She is, I replied, because she doesn't know you the way I do, and you don't know her the way you think you do. You know the version of each other that exists outside of bills and laundry and real life. He didn't argue. Are you moving out? I asked. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly overwhelmed. I need time. You've had time. The room went quiet. He looked around the kitchen like he was seeing it for the first time. The fridge covered in magnets from road trips, the scratch on the hardwood floor from when we dragged the couch in, the coffee maker he insisted on buying because it changed everything, all of it suddenly fragile. I don't want to lose you, he said. But you don't want to leave her, I replied. His silence filled in the rest. That was the moment I realized something I hadn't let myself fully accept yet. He wasn't torn because he loved us equally. He was torn because he wanted both lives, the safety of this house, the history, the shared friends, and the excitement of starting over with someone who saw him as the new, improved version. I'm not going to beg, finally. He looked surprised. I'm not going to fight for someone who's already halfway out the door. He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. I think you should go back to her, I said. His eyes widened slightly. For now, I added, because you clearly need to figure out who you are, and I need to figure out who I am without someone rewriting our marriage behind my back. He swallowed hard. You're just giving up? I almost smiled at that. I'm not the one who left. He stood there for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'll pack a bag. As he walked toward the bedroom, I felt something unexpected settle inside me. Not relief, not rage, clarity. For months, I'd been chasing him emotionally, trying to close the distance he kept creating. Now he was the one walking away, and for the first time since this started, I wasn't following. But as I listened to drawers opening and closing upstairs, one thought kept circling in my head. If he could reinvent himself so easily for her, what else was he capable of reinventing when things got hard? Because something about the way he said he needed time didn't feel like closure. It felt like the beginning of a new manipulation, and I had a feeling this wasn't going to end as cleanly as he thought. I woke up Monday morning to an empty house. Not the kind of empty that feels like peace, like the quiet after a storm, but the hollow, echoing kind, where every corner screams absence. Ryan's side of the bed was neatly made, no trace of him. The coffee maker was quiet, the fridge hummed. Everything looked untouched, like a museum exhibit of the life we'd been pretending to live together. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or violated. Both, I realized, at the same time.
I started cleaning, almost obsessively. The kitchen counters, the living room, the bathroom sinks. I moved cups, wiped fingerprints, rearranged magazines. Every motion was mechanical, a way to reclaim territory, to mark this house as mine again. But each sweep of the rag reminded me he had been here, living in my home while living elsewhere, and I hated the memory. By Tuesday, I had convinced myself I needed to know the truth. Not the excuses, not the half-hearted confessions, but the real timeline. So I did what I should have done months ago. I called his work, pretended to be HR for some stupid reason, claimed I needed to verify a project deadline. The receptionist was polite but suspicious, and I hung up before she asked questions I couldn't answer. That was enough. Enough to confirm that his so-called late nights at the office were mostly fiction. A few random hours, yes, but not every night, not 4 nights a week. It was then that I started connecting dots that made my stomach churn. Coffee shop receipts hidden in his coat pockets, Uber rides downtown at times he'd claimed to be in meetings, a gym membership he never went to. Every little lie stacked on top of the others, like he was building a ladder out of deception to escape into a life he was constructing with her. By Wednesday, I decided I wasn't going to wait any longer. I drove down to that apartment complex in Centennial again. This time, no hesitation, no fear. I knew what I'd see. I parked 2 blocks away, heart pounding, not with anxiety, but with the cold, furious certainty of someone who has been played for months. He was there, his truck, unmistakable. She was out on the balcony, laughing at something in her phone. Ryan was in the kitchen, the sliding door open slightly, pretending he wasn't aware of me watching. I didn't knock, I didn't call, I didn't hesitate, I just went in. The door was unlocked. Of course it was. He trusted this place the same way he trusted me, except he was smarter, more careful. I could see her standing there now, holding a wine glass again, but this time her smile faltered when she saw me. "Claire," Ryan said. His tone was flat, like he'd rehearsed it. "Don't," I said. "Don't even start." She blinked at him. Who is she?" "I'm the one who's been at home while you were building this," I said.
My voice was low, measured, and each word carried the weight of months of betrayal. Ryan's eyes darted between us. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think," I interrupted. "You've been lying to me since November. You told me you were quitting drinking for us, for our marriage. And meanwhile, you were building a life with her. That's what this is. A life you want, a wife you don't." He opened his mouth again, that rehearsed defense ready to fire. I stopped him with a gesture. "I don't want to hear it. I don't care about your explanations. I want to know something simple. Are you staying here, or are you coming home?" He hesitated. That hesitation was the loudest answer I'd ever heard. He began, but I cut him off. "No, I'm done letting you rewrite our story while I live in the shadows." She shifted uneasily. I realized she had no idea about his real life. She thought they were just dating, starting fresh. She didn't know about the years, the commitments, the house, the promises. And that made her complicit in a way I hadn't expected. Naive, yes, but still complicit. "You need to go," I said to her, "now." She didn't argue. She didn't even look at me properly. She left, grabbing her bag, muttering something about talking later. Ryan didn't stop her, didn't say a word. When the door clicked shut behind her, the apartment felt suffocating. Ryan looked at me, maybe expecting tears, maybe expecting me to crumble. But I didn't. "You can leave too," I said. "Go. Take your stuff. Take your truck. Take your lies. Just go." He looked stunned. Not angry, not defiant. Stunned. "I can't just leave," he said quietly. "Yes, you can," I replied. "You already have. Emotionally. You already left this marriage months ago." He tried again. "We can work this out." "No," I said firmly. "We can't. You want 2 lives. I want 1. I've been living in the fragments you left behind, pretending it's okay because you quit drinking. That isn't okay. That never was. I felt like I was shaking, but I didn't care. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I wasn't afraid of the man I thought I knew. He had revealed himself. Completely." He slumped against the counter, head in his hands. I don't think he was used to seeing me so resolute, so unbroken. "You're angry," he said finally. "Not angry," I replied. "Clear." That clarity didn't come from relief. It came from recognition. Recognition that the person I married, kind, flawed, funny, loving, wasn't in this room. The man in front of me was a version of him I didn't know and couldn't love. I wanted to do the right thing," he muttered. "I wanted to stay sober. I wanted to—" "Stop," I said. "Stop making this about anything other than what it is. You lied. You left. You built a life without me, right under my nose. That's it." He looked at me then, eyes red, something like guilt finally shining through.
But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "I'll pack my stuff," he said finally. "I don't want it," I replied. "You can leave everything. Take what you need. But this house, these walls, this life, it's mine. You've already forfeited it." And that was the hardest part. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't begging. I wasn't crying. I was just done. That quiet, calm, terrifying kind of done that leaves no room for negotiation. He left. He didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't fight. Just walked out, truck loaded, phone in his pocket, leaving a hollow echo of the man I used to know. I sat on the couch for hours after, staring at the empty side of the bed, the untouched coffee maker, the stacks of bills and mail that had gone unread. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was a reminder that months of lies, manipulation, and betrayal had finally come home. But then, somewhere in that silence, I realized I could breathe again. I didn't have to play detective anymore. I didn't have to question every late-night text, every awkward excuse, every change in his routine. I could just exist in the truth, as hard and painful as it was. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I'd ever fully trust someone again. I didn't know if I could ever walk past that empty apartment complex without remembering the shadow of him and the version of his life he tried to steal from me. But I knew one thing. I was still here. And this time, I wasn't bending around someone else's lies to make my own life bearable. I wasn't pretending to accept what wasn't mine. I was alone, yes, but I was whole. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The bed felt empty, but my chest felt heavy with a different kind of presence. Clarity, ownership, and the knowledge that I hadn't lost everything. I had lost him, but I hadn't lost me. I took a deep breath, rolled up the sleeves of my shirt, and started unpacking the mental weight of months of suspicion, deceit, and betrayal. I made lists, called friends, started planning nights out alone, evenings at coffee shops just for me. I realized that even though the story with him had ended, my story was just beginning. And somewhere deep down beneath the anger and heartbreak, a small, stubborn ember of hope glimmered. Not for him, not for us, but for me. For the life I would rebuild from the pieces he left behind. A life where honesty didn't come with a side of lies, and where love didn't require bending myself into someone I wasn't. I opened the sliding doors to let in the evening air, listened to the quiet hum of traffic outside, and finally let myself exhale. It hurt. God, it hurt more than I could have imagined. But the pain was honest, real. And that, I realized, was infinitely better than anything he had ever offered me in the months of his absence, his lies, his quiet betrayals. I closed my eyes and let the silence settle. For the first time in years, the silence was mine. It was mine to keep. It was mine to live in. And I wasn't letting him back into it. The chapter had ended. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe.